Welcome to Release to Revive. This is where we talk about you and your energy, how to manage your energy physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Welcome back, my soul-led sisters. So today I have a really cool friend that's coming on board. I haven't had a hypnosis therapist online yet, so this will be really exciting. She has studied extensively hypnosis mastery, NLP Matrix Therapies, which is also just another whole thing of itself. And I brought her on because Rachael is not only just as inspired and driven to help other women just like me and her, like ambitious women like you, ready to unlock your confidence, to own your power, to step into your authentic version of yourself and just stop fluffing around, right? Whether you're building a business or not, or you're a mama trying to just, get by life in a more fun and flirty way, then, or even while you're climbing a career ladder, like it's really your choice of what that thing is. But deep down, the subconscious work shows you that change can be fast and easy, and that's what Rachael taps into with her work, and that's what I really want to highlight today. I want to give you that insight of how it can help you, especially if you felt like you have hit some of those walls that sometimes occur when we're trying to grow and expand. This will help you. It'll help you understand why. And there's certain things we're covering, like people pleasing, feeling a sense of control and the perfectionism that comes with that. And also other aspects of burnout that me and her have both experienced ourselves and want to help others through, because it isn't just about doing less. Sometimes burnout can actually feel like you need to put your foot on the pedal and move towards the direction that you've been wanting to, but you've been hesitating to. So let's dive in. Welcome, Rach Day. Hi.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi.
You're welcome. Have been really excited to speak to you because I know that we both have a very big passion on helping driven women. So just people like us ourselves as well, that are very ambitious, have huge goals. And what I love about your work is hypnosis, is that it can help us make things seem easier. I feel like on my end. There's so many struggles that we seem to face when we're trying to strive for our goals and we push so hard. And just before we dive into all of that though, I'd love for you to just let them know why you love hypnosis, like what made you dive into it. Was there a pivotal moment? And a little bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, sure. Hypnosis is so cool. So I studied conscious hypnosis last year, and it was actually just kind of something I guess I fell into as part of wanting to be a coach and deciding that that was the path that I wanted to go on. Previously, I had been working in media for 6.5 years. So I'd worked in agencies and also in sales. And it was something that I really enjoyed at the start, but I just kind of realized over the last couple of years that it wasn't really something that I wanted to be doing anymore. And I was feeling very burnt out by it and just really unhappy. And after looking into my strengths and my values and everything, I came up against life coaching. And when I was reviewing all of the subjects and stuff I do, I was like, oh, hypnosis, that sounds pretty cool. And it was actually one of the subjects that I was most excited for because I didn't really know much about it. I think the only time I've ever been exposed to hypnosis is on a cruise ship, and they were, had the entertainment up on the stage and everyone's clucking like a chicken and, doing their funny dance. And so I did a 3-day course to start with. And it's funny, when I was going into that class, I knew I was going to have to hypnotize people. And for some reason, it just didn't occur to me that I would also have to be hypnotized. We always do, it's like, I'll do you, you do me. And I just literally totally blanked on that fact. And so when I got into the class, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be hypnotized for this. And it's funny because I couldn't even tell you how many times now that I got hypnotized, but I was just so mind boggled by the amazing things that our mind can do and all of the benefits that hypnosis can have, how you can just, I guess, like talk with your subconscious mind and learn to bring in those aspects of yourself where you can have that really positive self-talk, and it's really a driver of success. And the fact that you can just change from one state to another state so quickly. Like, I just loved that so much. I was like, man, change does not have to be hard. It can be easy and it can be fast and fun. And I just loved that concept. And at the end of that training, they were like, look, we have this master hypnosis. It starts in 4 days if you want to do it, and it's 6 days long. And I just decided to upgrade and just jump straight into it because all of the stuff that I had been learning just felt so life-changing. I already felt like my mind was more at peace and that I just had this stronger belief in myself that I could do things. And I knew that if I did master hypnosis, that that was just going to propel me forward into being able to use it in most scenarios. So I learned like sleep coaching and Inception, which Inception is an actual thing. It's not just a movie. And like it was just, yeah, I remember there was like this one time I was walking down the street and I was like, I have no thoughts. Like I literally just realized that I just was completely at peace and
Oh,
completely
yeah.
calm. And I'm a chronic overthinker. So that was just mind blowing for me that I could go from being this person who was constantly overthinking and like, just so over the top to just being like calm and zen and just feeling so good.
Yeah.
And it just was so clear to me, even in a couple of days, just how powerful hypnosis is. And I just want to share that with everyone.
Yeah. That's so cool though. So even just like, I mean, you wouldn't have had much time after the initial first 3 days you did
No.
to notice the difference because you dove straight into the deep end to like go even deeper with it. But
Yeah.
let's say like after that week then of like or more, a little bit longer than a week, what what were like the major changes then? Like you said, the overthinking. Were
Mm.
you quite an anxious person then? As would you call it anxious as well, or?
Yeah, I've probably had anxiety since like 2020. My parents separated and it like triggered this anxiety in me. I'd like never felt it before. I remember I used to have times where I would be brushing my teeth and I would just get this like super anxious feeling in my stomach, and I was like, something is so wrong. And I did actually get like a bit of depression during that time as well. And I worked through like with a psychologist, and she was great. And I made a lot of headway with just taking those actions and having those hard conversations with the people that I needed to in order to move through those emotions. But it meant that I've pretty much had anxiety since since that time. Like it was just that trigger event for me that has now meant that I've been, I guess, had quite anxious thoughts, and I find it difficult to really tune into my intuition because it's like, is that anxiety or is that intuition?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very similar feeling. So yeah, it has been like that. And I think that's I guess like I always have been a bit of an overthinker, but I don't think that I knew that it was anxiety until I had those other feelings in other parts of my body that really like highlighted that feeling of anxiety for me.
Yeah. That's a huge piece. I love what you just said about like, is it my intuition or is it the anxiety? Because a lot of people like will feel their intuition in their gut, right? But
Yeah.
then a lot of the times when we do fall into that fight or flight state, we're like, it's just that fearful feeling. So it's really important
Yeah.
to notice the difference of that.
Yeah, it's such a similar feeling. And
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult to tap into, like trying to work out, is that just a fear response or is my subconscious actually trying to tell me something? Like, is something actually wrong here?
Mm,
And it's funny because I've learned more about intuition and things by learning about the subconscious mind. And our brain takes in 2 million bits of information every single second, which is just like just so wild and so mind-boggling. You're just like, no, that's not possible. But it takes in 2 million bits of information, and then it obviously like generalizes and it deletes and just filters all of that information based on all of our experiences and things and our senses. And we only actually process about 132 bits of information consciously per
A
second.
second still.
Out of those 2 million, we only process about 132 bits. So that's a lot of information that's just kind of gone to the wayside. So if you then have those intuitive feelings, it's almost like your subconscious mind, like it still is aware of all those 2 million bits. You just aren't consciously. So if you're getting those intuitive feelings, it's your subconscious mind being like, you're not consciously aware of something, but I picked it up and I'm sending you this signal to say that something's wrong, or that you're getting this feeling for a reason.
Yeah.
So I think that I have learned to better recognize a feeling of anxiety versus a feeling of intuition, but it is quite like a difficult change, I guess, if you're a very anxious person to fully trust if that's just your anxiety talking or if it's intuition
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. And I like this is one of the main questions I wanted to ask you. Let's dive into this piece of like because of the anxiety and the overthinking, like basically we do that because we want to feel in control and we want to like figure out what are all the scenarios that could happen in this moment to like protect
Yes.
ourselves, right? It's our survival mode. But yeah, can you get into that piece? Because it's like I mean, control, like we spoke about in a previous conversation, it's an illusion.
Yeah.
So yeah, just how does that work in our brains though and subconsciously? I'm so curious.
Yeah, so I think control is such an interesting one because I think definitely a few years ago, I would have called myself a very controlling person, and most people would have, said I was a bit of a control freak. And not in like trying to control other people or anything like that, but I'm always prepared when I travel. I pack for every scenario, and, I always just wanted to like make sure that I had thought of absolutely everything. And
My beautiful A-type women out there.
yeah,
This is for you.
like hopefully some of you can relate. But I think that it's really interesting because I once met with an intuitive healer and I was talking about how I wanted to control these situations, and she just turned to me and she was like, control is an illusion. Like you're not actually able to control much at all. Really, all you can control is yourself. You can control how you react to a situation, like how you prepare for a situation and your thoughts. Like you can control those, but you can't actually control any of the factors that go into an event or a situation. And I think what is really amazing about realizing that is that if you can accept that there are just some things that are out of your control, it does actually take away some of that stress. And you can't make a decision on things that you can't control.
Mm.
Like there's an element of the fact that you're able to sit there and kind of think, okay, well, like if this thing happened, like how would I feel? How would I react? But ultimately, there could have been something that happened weeks ago that has influenced how this event or situation is going to take place. And you just have absolutely no control of that. There's always going to be factors
Mm.
that are unknown to us and that we just don't have any say over.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have an example in your life where, um, I guess since you've done hypnosis now, like, do you feel you're better off in the unknown zone of like getting out of your comfort zone or like just pushing yourself into areas of where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's go for it?
Yeah, it's so funny actually. I feel like I have pushed myself out of my comfort zone in the last 6 months more than I ever have in my life. I feel like I definitely used to be that kind of person that just wanted to kind of sit in the shadows like a little bit. Like I kind of longed to be in the spotlight in a way, but I was so afraid of it. And I kind of let fear dictate a lot of my life. And through all of this work that I've done with hypnosis and also like NLP as well, like I just was like, I don't want to let fear control my life anymore. There are so many more cool and amazing things that I can do, and I know that I'm capable of if I just feel the fear and do it anyway.
Mhm.
And what I've discovered is that getting out of my comfort zone has just become so much easier since I've kept doing it. It's like I've just kept pushing the boundaries of where I can be. And now it like I can just dive into a situation that is so out of my comfort zone so much faster, so much easier, and with way less fear
Mm.
than I ever did before because I know that it's just going to work out. Like I kind of have this belief that everything is going to work out exactly as it's supposed to. And it might not be how you think it's going to happen, but it's going to work out anyway. But you have to keep believing it,
Yeah.
because I think sometimes people give up really fast because they hit a roadblock straight away and it's like, oh no, I can't do anything now. Like I'm failing, nothing is good. But when you keep pushing past those things, it's like there's all of these like amazing jewels like after that.
Yeah.
I always think of this meme that I saw, and there's this like dwarf or something. He's like mining through like this tunnel underneath the ground, and he's trying to get to these jewels, and he keeps going, and then he just decides, I have been going for ages. I'm just going to turn around and stop. And in the meme, he's like this close. Like he would have
Yeah.
just needed one more hit and he would have reached the jewels. And I always think about that when I think about not giving up because I'm like, oh, it could just be one more thing. Like there's one more thing I have to get right
Mm.
and it's just gonna like break everything through. So I think having those things where you don't feel I guess like there's always going to be that kind of wanting to control, like, underneath things. But definitely since doing hypnosis, I think I'm just so much more calm at things. I think since starting my business, I have been like pushing the boundaries of what I'm doing and I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone time and time again. And it is really hard at the start, but it honestly becomes much easier the more that you do it. It's kind of like a muscle in a way.
Can I pick your brain? Like, what is it? What would you, for someone like in your position? I mean, a lot of us face this. Like, I definitely was stuck in a bit of a perfectionism controlling
Mhm.
state. And I know
Yeah.
now, looking back, like striving for perfection is actually the lowest standard you can give yourself because it just makes you procrastinate because you know you're never going to like actually achieve it, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
another thing on that too, it's always actually more, it's not so much the outcome that we're chasing ever. It's really how we're going to feel, right? Like with any goal you have, it's how that's going to make you feel is what you're craving. And
Yeah,
so same with like the negative, I see it as. So like if you don't want to fail or you don't want to not feel like you're in control, it's because you're scared of how you're going to feel. Like maybe you're going to feel inadequate or what's another good feeling that might pop up? Even just the feeling of feeling out of control because you just like don't know, yeah, you don't know what to do or you just lost. With hypnosis specifically, like how do you dive into the mind deeper to address that? Like what would you say to someone or how do you lead them through that to kind of feel more safe and grounded in not
Mm.
being in control?
Yeah, I think with perfectionism, like I have been called a perfectionist many a time. I have called myself a perfectionist. It's a bit of a label that I've had. And I think it's really only recently that I have been I guess, exploring that and trying to get over it, I never realized that having perfectionism really is, it just, it's tied to self-worth. A lot of the time I won't be good enough if this isn't perfect, if I make a mistake, and that people are going to think less of you if you are making those errors, or that it's not like the absolute gold standard and you have these really high standards for yourself. And I always used to think it was a good thing because I was like, just means I have high standards and good attention to detail, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I think it's when you realize that it I mean, if you've heard of archetypes, it's actually a shadow archetype is the perfectionist of the creator. You know, someone that's really creative and self-expressive is feeling like nothing you do is ever good enough. And with hypnosis, the way that I would be addressing that is actually embedding that positive self-talk and those positive commands that even if you make a mistake, even if you launch before you're ready, which FYI, you're never going to be ready. So
Yeah, yeah.
being ready is also an illusion, but it's really embedding like those positive commands that like you are good enough regardless, and having that self-belief, that bravery and courage. Like courage is not the absence of fear, it is the resistance and the overcoming of fear. It's like feeling the fear and doing it anyway, and just having the courage to jump into it regardless of what the outcome is going to look like, because there's really no such thing as failure. Like you are always going to learn and be able to take those learnings into what's going to make you successful in the end. So I think that's really what I would be focusing on in hypnosis, is kind of bringing in those repetitive positive commands, because the brain actually learns by repetition. So we need to make sure that we're not just kind of having one session and doing it once, because it's really not going to do anything. It's telling the subconscious over and over again, and doing exercises for yourself as well, telling yourself these successful, positive affirmations. And they're affirmations that you can believe about yourself.
Yeah.
I don't believe in affirmations that are, like all the way up here and you're like all the way down here, because you're
Yeah.
just not going to be able to believe that you can get to that space. It's really embodying that positive self-talk and catching yourself, having that awareness that when you're not speaking to yourself very nicely, and being able to reframe that so that you can have those positive commands, because the more that you tell yourself those things, the more that you're going to believe them and you'll embody them. And I think that's where hypnosis is really powerful.
Mm-hmm. And going back to like the science that you sort of brought in at the start
Mm.
with the repetition, like it's because the repetition like fires and wires things in our brains, right? And then it literally creates different filters, I guess, that we filter all that information through. Is that right?
Yeah, so
Or
it creates like new neural pathways.
yeah.
So when we are constantly like repeating things, if you think about a cornfield
Mm,
and you cut down just kind of like one cornfield, you've got one pathway that is like super just worn down, and because that's the pathway you've always been walking on. And then you've got this new pathway that you're trying to knock down, but it's like you have to kind of pave the way, and you might go back to your old habits a little bit, back down that other path. But as long as you keep coming back to this other pathway and you keep reinforcing those things, you'll eventually build a new path. And that's
mm,
what it is doing. It's creating that new neural pathway. If you have that repetition over and over again, you're just making it stronger and stronger. And eventually, that old pathway, it's old and withered. This is like the new path that your brain
yeah.
is going to be going down, because that's what you keep reinforcing.
Have you watched Inside Out 1 and 2?
Yes, I love
Yeah.
Inside Out.
Brilliant, isn't it?
It's
Unpacking all
so
this.
good. I actually love how they've been able to, I guess, embody all of the characters and the way that they think about the different things, like having the memory pods and like your core memories. And it's
Yeah.
actually so fascinating how they do it all. I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, such a good like visual representation of it.
But even how the second one with the sense of self, how it like
Mm.
creates what you think about yourself.
Yes,
Um,
oh my gosh, I
yeah.
found that really interesting because I watched that after I had been doing all of this work.
Yeah.
So, what a cool way for them to represent this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so true. It's like your beliefs are stories that you tell yourself.
Yeah.
So, if you like saying that I am a perfectionist, that's a label that you're putting onto it. So, the more that you keep reinforcing that, the harder it is for you to then switch around and be like, oh, actually, no, like I don't care about being perfect. I don't care about having that control.
Hmm.
It's detaching yourself from that label and just saying, I have perfectionist tendencies, but I can change that. You
Yeah.
know, it's being able to take it away from identifying as that thing and
Yeah.
having that belief, because it is really important to be able to then move forward and overcome that as a limiting belief about yourself.
Yeah. Well, one that I had, which leads me into my next question for you, um, for a long time was the that good girl persona, right? The nice person, the kind one, the bright and bubbly, positive all the time. And it truly like it was a it was a mix of things that kind of brought it up. Like I went into my yoga training and then learned more and more to actually listen to my own body to then set healthy boundaries. But it was also like someone did highlight that I was a little bit of toxic positivity at times. And I
Mm.
get that now looking back because of like I did push things that weren't so lovely and that I didn't really want to deal with under the rug a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I did avoid like confronting conversations as well and all those sorts of things, right? So yeah, and which led to also then people pleasing because I just wanted other people to be happy and I just wanted to be the positive
Yeah.
impact and all this stuff. It just layers on top of each other. But like unpacking that, I mean, it comes from like your childhood, right? And so how would you then rewire that for someone if they had a session with you, let's say?
Yeah, so I think people pleasing is an interesting one. There's this concept in hypnosis called approval addiction, and it includes people pleasing. It also includes things like fear of judgment, fear of conflict, fear of disappointing people. Like there are all of these different fears that come into it. And I mean, when I was going through the list, there's about 10 of them. And if you have three or more, you have an approval addiction. Wanting
Wow.
yeah, wanting to be,
Oh
I
my
guess,
gosh. What are
in
these 10? Tell us.
Wait, let me get them up because they are literally wild. So the 10 are, all right, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, sounding foolish, fear of disappointing people, fear of embarrassment, appearing unpopular, fear of conflict, or of appearing unsophisticated, and people pleasing. So there's 10 of those. So if you answer yes to three or more, you have an approval addiction.
I kind of
And
did to 4. Oh, spoiler alert.
yeah, so when I first did this, I think I got to like seven or eight. Like I had a lot of ones in there. And there are like, specific questions, I guess, in there that you'd kind of maybe you'd be like, oh wow, like I didn't even think about that being a fear of conflict or a fear of, judgment or whatever. But I've always known I had a fear of judgment. Um,
Yeah.
but, that is also something that with all of the things that I've been doing, pushing myself out of my comfort zone, that I have been able to move through. But
Yeah.
anyway, back to pleasing. So so people pleasing is one of these approval addictions. It's, wanting to, I guess, make everyone around you happy at the expense of yourself, and
Yes.
not being able to set those boundaries for yourself and to speak up and share your opinions. And if you don't agree with something, being able to say that. I almost think that it kind of comes like hand in hand with conflict sometimes, and having that fear of conflict, because if you don't speak up and you don't say how you feel, you're not going to have a fight with them. You're not going to be inciting like anger or an unpleasant emotion from them.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting when you think about people pleasing is like you actually cannot control what the other person thinks or what the other person feels. And it comes back to control. Because if you think about it, you are making an assumption about how someone is going to feel if you say or do something that you think is like not going to please them. Like you're only creating this assumption in your mind. You can't actually be sure unless you were to say it or you were to do it. And you can not be a people pleaser, but also still be very kind and respectful in your communication to people. And I
Um,
think there's that worry that if I'm not people pleasing, then I'm like really rude and I'm really mean and arrogant. And it's not the case at all. It's that same thing with like being the nice girl and like not wanting to feel like you're being really arrogant and like pushing your agenda onto people.
Yeah.
Just
And I mean,
really,
there's things that pop up like I just want to preface this as well, because in my own experience, I'm wondering what you've experienced. But in my own experience, there were definitely people that kind of took advantage, or I also taking responsibility for it. I allowed them to like sort of walk all over me.
yeah,
And so I was enabling that power play. And so then the moment I did set the boundaries and kind of started saying no, 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 like more often in kind ways, then they'd get angry because they can't get what they want from you anymore. And so
yeah,
there's like, that's like the real life experience of it though. So then I feel like that's what I was certainly afraid of, and having to let go of certain friendships and just having to trust that it's just not meant to be anymore, and all those sorts of things is a part of
yeah,
it. So it's not
yeah,
all like, the moment you stand up, everything will be fine. Like it's actually, there are some things that are hurtful that come from
yeah,
it, but that's
totally.
why it's so scary, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you make such a good point because I think there are definitely moments where like you're making an assumption and they could actually be totally fine. But
Mm,
if you do have people that are taking advantage of you in that scenario, I think it's really deciding whether you want to be having those kind of relationships where you
yeah,
want to have someone who is taking advantage of you because like they just know that you're going to say yes.
yeah,
So it's I guess it's like a bit of a balancing act because it's really knowing the value of yourself and what are the relationships and the type of behavior that you're willing to put up with as well. And I'm not saying that's easy. That is such a hard decision, especially if it's someone that's really close to you. You know, if it's someone that like one of your best friends, it's really hard to let go of that kind of relationship or even just to step back a little bit and be like, I don't know if this is right for me. I'm not happy how you're treating me, but it takes courage to stand up and say that. I
yeah,
think from a hypnosis perspective, it's really becoming aware of your boundaries and being able to understand your value. I think it comes back to embedding those like more like positive like commands within yourself where you build up that belief in yourself that you're worth more than that and
mm,
that your voice deserves to be heard and your opinion. And if you want to do something in a different way, I think the way that people pleasing has played out for me a lot in my life is just saying yes to like everything. And it meant that I got really burnt out at work, or I would just be like doing extra hours and pushing myself so hard because if someone asked me to do something, I felt like I had to do it.
yeah.
I could like delegate that to someone else. They'd ask me, so I have to do it. And, I just
Or
always
like you're
want
incapable if you don't say yes. Like you feel like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, or it's kind of just like, oh, well, like they're going to think less of me if I don't say yes to doing this for them.
did you
And
find as well that it's kind of a two and two, right? So if you have quite healthy boundaries in that regard, I feel like that's the more you respect other people having them as well. So when
mm,
I found myself in that people pleasing a lot, um, and I'm wondering if you felt the same way, if then someone else would say no to me and my requests, what I wanted out of them, I guess, even if it was just a kind ask, then you'd kind of get a little resentful, like, oh, why won't they do that for me if I drop everything for them? Or other way,
yeah,
like, or like just in general for other people, how you letting people treat you and you treat others. Yeah.
yeah. No, I totally know what you mean because I think also even when you're in like that people pleasing state, you feel like you say yes to everyone and then other people have boundaries and so they incite those boundaries on you and you're like, but I just did this thing for you, you know?
Yeah. It's
It's just
triggering
like
because you're
I
like,
said
what? You can
yes.
say no? I didn't know that was an option.
You're like, no, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it is easy, I guess, to get like a little bit resentful about when people say no to you. I think it's also if people are always saying no to you, like that is, I guess, something else that would need to be worked through and maybe even like a conversation that you would have with your friend, like, hey, I just feel like you're rejecting me or whatever. But I feel like at the same time, there, like as I said before, there are those stories that you create for yourself. And I think sometimes when people get no, it's like immediate rejection, and they create this story like, oh, they don't like me, or, like they're not actually my friend, they don't want to help me. And you kind of spiral and make it mean something that it totally doesn't mean. But yeah, I think people pleasing, it's really one of those ones that comes back to the value that that you have in yourself,
Yeah.
building up that belief, even just small boundaries that you can start to enforce, because it might be really scary to turn around and say no to doing something when you've always said yes,
Yeah.
but maybe it's just doing something really small, like instead of what's a good example? Like just maybe going to bed like 15 minutes earlier or something. Like it can literally just start with yourself and like inciting those boundaries with yourself and like building up to then like pushing those boundaries with other people.
Yeah.
But I think you do still want to do it in that kind and respectful way, because then and communicating, like not just ghosting someone, or it needs to be done in the right way where people are going to be like, oh, like I'm disappointed that they said no, but I really respect them for how they told me, and I understand like why they can't help me at this time, you
Yeah.
know? So I think that's important, but also not giving just a million excuses why you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Because
Confronting
that's still,
conversations.
yeah, because that's like still people pleasing territory. It's like, oh, well, I had this thing on, and then I've also got this, and I've got this, and like, and just trying to make it sound like you're so, so busy and that's why you can't do it. But like in any other circumstance, like I would have said yes. Yeah, it's like making sure that you're kind of honoring your boundaries and not just going like full speed, like I would have done it if I, had the chance and
Yeah.
everything. Then if they come to you and they know that you have the chance and you actually just genuinely don't want to do it, like you're kind of out of that excuse.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is where that whole kind of leads us into the next piece. It's because there's a bit of a, how do I phrase this? Like there's definitely the guilt that comes up that I felt before of like, especially with this online life these days, like you being switched off, having a day off and not responding to people. And someone's like, let's say, sent you an important email, but they're expecting you to respond or something like that as a scenario. You almost feel guilty not actioning that on that day off because you're like,
Mm,
uh, like because of that people pleasing again. But it's
yeah,
those boundaries of like, no, 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 I'm not touching my phone for work today. It's just like a simple
yeah,
that will help
exactly.
you not burn out as well, because your rest is just as important as
Yeah, I used to
that.
have that a lot with taking sick days. You
Mm,
know, I always used to feel guilty if I was taking a sick day. I felt like I had to be so, so sick in
yeah,
order to take a day off. And it's funny because I think in the last couple of years, when I started being, more unhappy at work, like I started needing like more time for my mental health because I just wasn't in a good place.
yeah,
And I and like there were some days like I just woke up and I was like, I need the day for myself, like just for my mental health, like not because I'm just about to die, like, I've got like the
yeah,
worst cold or I've got COVID or anything like
yeah,
that. Like I just was like, I actually just need a day for myself to just rest and to not do anything or do something that I enjoy and that is going to just fill me up so that I can continue the week and I can feel better and I can be a better person at work. And so I just started, like, I started doing that and just taking the guilt out of that,
yeah,
because I always just used to feel so guilty about it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to show up as a better person at work if I take this one day.
yeah,
It made such a difference.
yeah. Which again leads me to this next part of like burnout, because you've experienced it, I've experienced it.
Yeah.
um, and there's a few pieces to this. I'm very passionate about this. Because a lot of the times you think like burnout is doing too much. And yes, in the scenario of like we were just talking people pleasing, if you're just taking on too much, totally
Yes.
set some
Yeah.
fucking boundaries.
Yeah.
But there's also another few pieces to it, and it's the one is like over planning, overthinking,
Mm.
and just the mental space. Like you just said, you probably got up that day, your body was feeling fine, but you felt drained. Like you just didn't have the energy to go to work because it was mostly up in here, though, wasn't it? Would
Yeah,
you say?
like I think your body and your mind are so linked.
Yeah,
So like they can both affect the other. So you
totally.
can your emotional state just by how you stand and like how you compose yourself. But you
Yeah.
can also have the flip side where if you're so all over the place in your brain, like it takes the life out of you, like
Yeah.
in your body as
You
well. And
start
you're
feeling
like, actually,
fatigued.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't want to do anything today. Like, I just feel so wrecked. But you're like, but physically, I'm technically fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sick. I'm like, I actually probably could go to the gym because that is like something that makes me feel good and that lifts me up. But I'm like, the thing that actually drains your energy, you're like, I can't do that today. Like, I
Mhm.
just don't have the energy for that. And yeah, it's really interesting because I would say I felt burnt out like quite a few times in my media career. And I think it's one of the issues that is in the media industry is that you are working really hard and you don't have enough space for your mental health and your mental capacity, and you do end up just really like clouded in your mind and you just overwork yourself like to the point of like you actually just can't do anything or you get sick because your body is just like enough, like you need to take a rest. What like and I'm gonna
Is it
make you
because of the pace of the industry, do you think? And it's like a very high expectation
yeah,
to
it's a
just
high
push
stress.
through.
Yeah, it's a high stress industry. There's lots of like quick deadlines, quick changes, long hours. Like you can work quite long, especially if you have to turn around like a really quick deadline. So
Yeah.
it is, I think there's just a lot of pressure, like coming from clients, coming from your managers, and you can still have like I had some amazing managers like in the industry, and part of like the people pleasing that came in for me was like I didn't want to leave like my amazing colleagues with all of my work, and I felt like I was so busy and I know they're busy. I don't want to give all of my work to them, so I'm just going to stay in this role that I'm not enjoying just so that I could make their life easier,
Yeah.
but I remember when I finally got to the point of like deciding to leave, I just decided I would do that without having a job lined up or anything because
Yeah.
I was like so mentally exhausted by the time that I got there, but I just made this decision and I was like, I cannot fathom going back to work next year. It was like October long weekend. I had a 2 month notice period. So if I quit now, I'd like finish in December. So I
Hmm.
was I just felt so, so exhausted. And I remember when I finally quit, I couldn't even say the words. I couldn't even say I'm resigning. My manager had to ask me. But when I finally did it, my mind just like fully cleared because
Yes.
like for the first time, I wasn't thinking about the 50, 100 questions that I had been like going around in my head for a year. I like fully just was like, oh my gosh, I have so much space in my head right now. Like I can
Yeah.
about what I actually want, like what I want for the future. And I had like not felt that good in so long. Like the constant going back and forth. Should I do
Yeah.
this? Should I do that? Like, what should I do with this? Oh, but like, will someone want to hire me when I have 2 months notice on my notice period? Like, that's so long. Like, should I quit before that, or should I wait till I have a job because that's a safe thing to do? But then that's another 5 months maybe that I'm waiting. I was just so back and forth with everything, and I was constantly thinking about it outside of work as well. So it really affected all parts of my life and all parts of my well-being to just have this weighing on me all the time.
Yeah.
And
Do I,
it really
don't
does
I?
turn you, yeah, literally.
And it
And
leads to decision fatigue is what I learned it as because of like it can happen like in your environment space as well. I was really passionate about like decluttering at one point because of that. Because it's just like you get torn between like your decisions of what you're doing and oh,
yeah, you're like, do I throw this out? Do I keep
yeah.
it?
But it's that sitting on the fence and not fully committing. And
Yes,
I've seen this time and time again, and it's debilitating. Like
seriously. Yeah.
until the moment, like success leaves clues, right? And the people that do move the fastest, have those huge quantum leaps everyone's talking about,
Yes. Yeah.
they're the ones that literally just take the actions the fastest way possible, like without
Yeah.
knowing more information, like we all think we
Yeah.
need before we can take the next step.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, it's funny because I think last year I did a bit of that busy work, where I just felt like I was doing the things that was going to help get me clients and things, but actually I was almost doing things that made me feel like I was busy, but not like the needle moving activities and actions that were just going to propel me forward so fast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like I've come back and I'm just like a completely different person with all the actions I'm making. And it's so exciting, like all of the amazing things you can do when you're like taking all these actions that you're like,
Mhm.
"Damn, like this is so cool that I'm doing all of this stuff." Like even being on this podcast today, I'm like, yes, like, this is something I've wanted to do like for so
Yeah.
long. And I'm so excited that I'm finally getting to do it. And it's because I'm taking all the actions,
Yeah.
I'm not just like sitting there like updating my website and, which
Yeah.
I really feel like I did last year. Like I
Yeah,
was
just
like,
to give you
"Need a
guys a back
website."
end insight, you followed up with me, what, 3, 4 times?
Yeah,
Because I've
literally.
just my life's been a bit chaotic, and you're
To be
like,
fair,
hey,
it was over
hey, I'm
Christmas
still
and
keen.
stuff.
Let's go.
I know, it's like, hey, it's me again.
And I was like,
But here we
oh,
are,
yes, of course. Yes,
guys,
let's do
persistent.
it.
But yeah, seriously, like it does make a big difference. And I feel like if you can make those quick decisions, you avoid that decision fatigue where you're just going back and forth.
Yeah.
Like not making a decision is also a decision. Like you're making a decision to stay stuck. Like
Yeah.
to stay unsure. Like you're not actually taking you're like by not taking action, I think people think that, oh, I'm just like not taking action. I'm just sitting here. I'm contemplating. But it's like, no, you're like making a decision to still
Yeah.
stay. And whatever choice you make, I think there's so much pressure to make the right decision. That was what I was worried about, like making the right decision. What's gonna, is this decision going to hurt me? Is it going to benefit me? Like, what if I don't like the next job that I go to and then I have to quit that one as well? And, like that did happen. But you learn things from every experience that you do. And either way, any decision that you're going to make, like you will learn lessons from
Yeah.
it. Like, and it's always going to work out the way that it's supposed to work out. And I think that if we just take the pressure off those decisions, which I wish I, had me telling myself, take the pressure off the decision because I spent a year, like a whole year trying to decide. Like that
Yeah.
is a long time to just be in
Yeah.
bed, going home every single day to look at jobs on LinkedIn, like trying to work out what I want to do, what kind of job do I want to do. As soon as I could just step back and like feel into my body, like I could make the decision that was right for me, even though it was a scary decision. It was scary to leave a job without having another job.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I know that I'm going to get another job in this time. And I did, like literally like a week in, because I actually had, like, I had the
Well,
mental.
energetically, you created the space for it too. If we
Literally,
want to
I'm
talk
like,
about
I
that.
wasn't getting a job because I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the energy
Yeah.
for the job.
Your brain wasn't filtering that in at all.
Exactly. And it's like, as soon as I quit, like, I was able to receive. And, like, I did do that. Like, I did go back into media. I did the sales job and everything. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that I did that because otherwise I would have wondered, what if? Like, what if it was just agency? What if it wasn't media in total? And it was like
Yeah.
something I needed to know. I needed to know that actually, no, it is media in general. And I feel good about my decision to go.
Yeah.
I remember there was this guy who was taking over for me at the sales job, and he was like, "You're gonna miss this. Like, you're gonna miss being in media. Like, after like a couple months, you're gonna be like, oh damn, like I'm missing." And I'm like, I'm 6, 7 months like since
Yeah.
I left, and I'm like, no, I'm feeling really good about my decision. I think
Nice.
that it was just, like it is right for me because I'm able to get the things that I did like about that job and that did fulfill me from there. I'm able to get that in my coaching. Like I
Yeah.
really enjoyed being able to like mentor people and coach people. Like that was actually the part of the job that I enjoyed, like was managing people and kind of doing that. So I'm able to take that feeling of helping people and put that into my coaching business now.
Yeah.
But I get to do it with like really awesome tools like hypnosis and NLP and matrix therapies, that I'm like really passionate about and I love talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really interesting, like how it kind of all works out. But I'm like, no, I'm happy with my decision.
Yeah. There was a quote that I lived by for a while there. My brother told it to me, and it was make a decision and then make it right.
Mm.
Because we do go, is it the right one? No.
Yeah,
So it's like
so scary.
once you commit, you devote yourself and you just keep like, and then maybe a few weeks, months down the track, you realize it wasn't the right one.
Yeah,
Or it's just time to make another decision, right? So it's just like, yeah, that's how life plays out, right? Now,
yeah,
you said
exactly.
you had a little taster for us. Do you want to give us a taste of
Yes,
your magic?
I will. Okay, so I have a little conscious hypnosis induction for all of you playing at home. And I highly recommend if you're driving to either pause or just come back to this
Will this
later.
help you move through anything specific, or is it what will this do
It
for us?
is. So, what this is going to do, it's really just going to give you a bit of an introduction to what it feels like to be hypnotized. So, it's just going to be really calming, grounding, just very peaceful. And it's just going to allow what hypnosis does is it allows you to have this narrow focus of attention. So, we're just going to be focusing on exactly how we feel, and we're just going to bring in all of the really nice, warm, fuzzy feelings. And that's essentially what today is all about. So yeah, it's just a bit of a taster of what hypnosis is like. This
Okay.
would be a similar induction that we would be able to do in a session, except that there it would probably be a little bit longer because we would be embedding commands and like various elements that would be specific to whatever you were working on. So you can use it for things like losing weight or stopping smoking, but you can also do it for, changing your limiting beliefs, getting out of like feeling stuck to feeling more motivated. There's so many different ways that you can have hypnosis help you, but I'm just kind of doing like a little bit of a taster today.
Yeah. Cool.
Jackie, can you follow instruction?
Yes.
Can you follow my instructions?
Yes.
Would you like to hit some hypnosis with me now?
Yes.
Amazing. Have you ever been hypnotized?
Not in person. So a recording? I don't know. Does that count?
Not live.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. Have you ever thought about it?
Yes.
Perfect. For anyone playing at home, if you have been hypnotized before, get ready because we're going to do it again. All right. So I want you to put your hands upside down on your lap like
Mhm.
this. And then what I'd like you to do is just lift your toes off the floor.
Hmm.
That's right. Tilt your head up and look at an imaginary spot on the ceiling. Focus your attention effortlessly on that spot. Take 3 deep breaths. 1, breathe in. And as you breathe out, close your eyes and relax your head. 2, breathe in. As you exhale, squeeze your hands into a fist and then relax and roll them over, palms touching your lap. 3, take a deeper breath in and hold it. Count backwards as you exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feet flat to the floor and relax. In a moment, I'm going to count from 10 to 0. As I count from 10 to 0, You are going to feel even more and more relaxed. You're not going to fall asleep. You won't lose consciousness. You'll be able to hear my voice at all times. With each number you hear, say to yourself in your mind, I'm going deeper and deeper relaxed. By the time I reach 0, you will feel an incredible sense of relaxation and inner peace. 10. Gradually become aware of the sensations of sitting. 9. Feel your arms at your sides. Now allow gravity to settle you into your chair. 8. Now gradually become aware of the process of breathing. Notice where you feel the breath most distinctly, either at the tip of your nose or at the rise and fall of your chest and abdomen. 7. Just feel the mere sensations associated with the breath. From the beginning of the inhalation, through the pause between the breaths, and follow the exhalation till the end. 6. Breathing normally now, feeling absolutely wonderful. Simply cover the breath with your awareness. 5. Every time your mind wanders to a thought, gently return it to the breath. 4. If you're feeling sleepy, notice how it is that you feel sleepy. 3. What does it feel like in your body, your face, and behind your eyes? 2. And as you go deeper, notice the sensations of breathing. 1. Deeper, deeper, and deeper. Relax every muscle from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. The deeper you go, the better you feel. The better you feel, the deeper you go. And as you do, take your attention to the feeling of your right hand. Notice how it feels. Now take your attention to your left hand. Take your attention to your left foot. And as you do, drop down deeper, deeper, and deeper. Relax. Say to yourself, I am feeling even deeper and deeper relaxed. 0. Think of someone you love. As you think of that person, see their face, feel their love and the love you have for them. With those good feelings, know that you possess the wisdom, the power, the motivation, the inspiration, and the passion to accomplish anything and everything you choose. In a moment, not yet, but in a moment, I will count from 1 to 5. When I count to 5, you will open your eyes bringing all those good feelings with you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Eyes open. Can do this easily, right?
Oh.
You look so rested.
Zen is what I call it.
So at peace.
Oh, that was beautiful.
How do you feel?
Yeah, good. It's like the calm waters, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually amazing what this like hypnotic state can bring you into. But it's funny because like hypnosis is actually just taking you from like one state to another state. So it doesn't have to be a relaxing state. It could
Mm,
be from like being in a stuck state to being in a really motivated state. So it might actually be like super high energy, but it's really having just that focused,
yeah.
narrow attention on an emotion and on a feeling.
Yeah.
So today we did one that was a bit more relaxing and, make
Yeah.
it grounded and peaceful for the afternoon
You
or the
gave me a
morning.
brilliant reminder that I need to do this in my next birth.
It's
Yeah.
actually great for that. If you do it like, a few weeks before,
Yeah.
it's really good because you can also use it for like pain management and, or like stress, especially when you're like getting to the kind of contraction stage and
Yeah. Yeah.
everything, the stress on the body. But it helps you to just go into your mind and just feel a little bit calmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Oh, thank you, Rachel.
No worries.
So good. I'm just like, I have no words anymore. I'm like that.
You're literally like, that's the end.
Yeah.
You're like, can't think of
Page
anything.
closed.
Well, I hope that that can help people during their day just to feel
Yeah.
grounded, and you can always come back and do it again and again.
Do you have any recordings or anything like that that you have, I don't know, something that they can dive into or find you as well? Tell them where they can find you if they want to do a session.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. My Instagram is at Empowered Expansion, and you can just hit me up in the DMs if you're interested in doing a session. I do at the moment have a walking meditation that people can do that's for free. It's just in my link in bio,
Yeah.
and that's just to help you slow down because I don't know if you've ever had this, but I have this constantly where I'm walking and then all of a sudden realize that I'm walking really fast and that I don't need to be walking that quickly anymore. And it's just a good reminder to just really slow down, just take your time, take in nature, and it is really short. It's like 10 minutes. So it's if you want to take a quick break, exactly what we're talking about with, making sure that you're not burning yourself out, that you're taking your rest, make sure you're taking your lunch breaks and go and do a slow meditative walk.
Yeah.
Um, that's on my Instagram as well. But yeah, if you would like to do a session with me, you can just hit me up in the DMs and I'd love to chat.
Thank you so much for everything you shared today.
It was
Uh,
such a great chat, and I just love being able to talk about all of this cool minds things and
yeah.
just yeah, the subconscious mind and stuff. I just love it. But also just to kind of help people understand hypnosis a little bit more as well, because I think there's definitely misconceptions out there that I'm going to be able to control your mind, and I promise you I'm not.
Really in the best way.
I'm like, you will definitely be able to come out of hypnosis. Don't you worry, you're not going to get
Yeah.
stuck.
Empowering you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me.